Welcome back to the King's Corner, the place for all things Bethesda. I am the KingFanMan. And if you love Bethesda and you're not subscribed yet to the KingFanMan channel, why not? Go ahead, hit that button. It won't sting for too long. And also, if you don't mind, hit that like button too. That will really help this video get out on YouTube. Alright, with all that said, we continue our search today for the scariest places in Fallout 76. Today we go to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and the Berkeley Springs Castle. The Berkeley Springs Castle, which many call the most haunted house in West Virginia, is located on a hill overlooking beautiful and historic Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, which is the county seat of Morgan County in the eastern panhandle of the state. The area is blessed with warm, clear water springs full of minerals that many believe to contain healing qualities. The springs remain at a constant 74 degrees, which is 25 degrees above normal groundwater. The springs have been used by Native Americans for centuries and has also drawn multitudes of visitors since the first Europeans arrived in America. George Washington, our first president, is just one of its famous visitors. He first visited Berkeley Springs when he was a surveyor's assistant at only 16 years of age, but he loved the springs and the area so much that he later purchased property in the town. Berkeley Springs was originally called Bath in honor of the British spa city named the same. One of the tourist attractions in Berkeley Springs State Park is actually called George Washington's Bathtub, which is just one of several outdoor tubs made at a time where people would bathe in these warm springs outside for all to see. Now, this is just a small reason why Berkeley Springs got a reputation very quickly of being a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah. In the late 1700s, the town of Bath became a playground of the rich colonial elite. Drinking, dancing, all-night parties, gambling, daily horse races, and bathhouses with a variety of services all gave Berkeley Springs its well-earned reputation. The story of Berkeley Springs Castle begins in 1879, when a young 17-year-old Victorian beauty and daughter of an Alabama congressman came to town. Her name was Rosa Pelham. She quickly caught the eye of Colonel Sam Taylor Suit, a Maryland businessman, state senator, and entrepreneur who was 30 years her elder and had been married twice before. Rosa originally rejected his attempts to win her favor. However, Samuel had a major thing going for him. He was wealthy, very wealthy. Samuel had made his fortune mainly in the selling and marketing of whiskey. He owned huge parcels of land in Maryland and West Virginia. Samuel continued to pursue the beautiful young Rosa. She finally gave him an ultimatum. If he would build her a castle, she would marry him. If not, leave her alone. Samuel, who was so enamored with Rosa, agreed to her conditions and promised to build her a castle that would be the envy of all the elite of Berkeley Springs. So in 1883, Samuel and Rosa were married. Rosa was 22 and Samuel was 51. 2 years later, in 1885, they began construction on Rosa's Castle, a half-scale replica of Berkeley Castle in England. They picked a beautiful location for the castle on a hill called Warm Springs Ridge overlooking Berkeley Springs. The castle was going to be 9,300 square feet, and it took over 100 German masons to finish the sandstone structure at an estimated $100,000, which I don't have to tell you in 1885 was a lot of money. In 1887, after the castle was completed enough to move in, Samuel, Rosa, and now their 3 children moved into their beautiful new castle. Now this is where our story becomes strange. Less than a year after moving into the castle, Samuel fell extremely ill and passed away under what many say were odd circumstances. It was thought that maybe Rosa had poisoned her husband, but it could not be proven.
After Samuel's death, there was not much mourning going on at the castle. In fact, just the opposite was reported. Rosa would host lavish parties, sometimes weekly and sometimes even nightly. It is reported that the castle would be lit up from its base to its turret with innumerable Chinese lanterns, and its terraces were always ablaze with beacon fires. Her parties would go all night long, and most of the elite from West Virginia to Washington, D.C. were seen in attendance. Over the next several years, Rosa had many male suitors, but never remarried, mainly because Samuel put in his will that Rosa could have the castle and the land as long as she didn't remarry. Now, it is rumored, but can't be totally confirmed, that Samuel actually died just days after making his will and leaving all of his inheritance to Rosa. Samuel also was not the only mysterious death at the castle. Two of Rosa's lovers also suffered strange deaths at the castle. The first died after being stabbed through the chest with Rosa's umbrella. The police report states that Rosa and her lover were fighting physically, and as they struggled on the staircase, her lover fell off the staircase and landed on the tip of Rosa's parasol, as umbrellas were called in that day. Well, with no witnesses to the incident, it was ruled an accident, and Rosa was not arrested. Just a couple of years later, Rosa's new lover would mysteriously fall off the roof of the castle. And again, with no witnesses, the death would also be ruled as an accident. But many people questioned if Rosa had a role in him falling to his death. Sadly, Rosa's teenage daughter would also die that same year from an unknown and mysterious illness. But all of this could not dissuade Rosa from continuing her extremely decadent lifestyle for more than a decade, spending her inheritance riches mostly on her extravagant parties and wild decorations for her castle. She would even rent railroad cars to bring guests in from Washington, D.C., and she would also hire the most famous musicians of the time to play at her parties. Just to remind you, Samuel was an extremely rich man when he died, and all that money went to Rosa. However, with no income and her crazy spending practices, it wasn't long until Rosa had spent the entire inheritance. She could no longer afford her lavish parties, and reports say she became a recluse, hardly ever leaving the castle. She became such a recluse that she would even throw rocks at anyone who tried to approach her door. Those that were closest to Rosa, and there wasn't that many, say that she became obsessed with the occult and black magic. Her interest started in this field during her partying days. She would hire gypsy fortune tellers for entertainment, and they would even have seances late into the night during the parties. Well, after her money ran out, these dark things started to dominate her life. Her close neighbors literally called her a witch, and that reputation spread throughout the town. Some even claimed that she had gone insane, closed off from the world, completely broke, and all alone in her castle. Rosa took out a mortgage on the castle to try to get some money to pay bills, but it wouldn't be long before the bank came calling because she was $4,000 behind on her mortgage payments. In 1898, Rosa was forced to rent out her castle just to try to keep up with the payments. She continued to rent out the castle until finally, in 1916, the Bank of Morgan County took ownership. Rosa and her two children moved to a small cottage near her beloved castle, where she remained until her death. The castle would be used as a hotel and party spot from 1916 through the 1950s. It would hold Friday night dances every weekend in the old castle club that was part of the hotel. Today, the castle, as it is known, is placed on the National Register of Historic Places, and tours are given daily. It still hosts many parties, weddings, and other special gatherings today. There is no doubt it is one of the most beautiful and unique residences in all of West Virginia. But with all the strange deaths and strange practices done through the years at the castle, it shouldn't surprise anyone that the castle has many very strange things happening inside. The staff of the castle report a wide array of paranormal activities. The late-night cleaning crew and security guards often have reported hearing phantom footsteps on floors and in rooms with no living people inside. The night staff says that these loud footsteps are so common that the veteran workers pay it little attention, but new workers still get very scared by the footsteps that have no rational explanation. However, there are other things that happen in the castle that would get anyone's heart racing. The sounds of children laughing is routinely heard in the castle, as are loud crashes coming from the top floor. One worker told a local reporter that while on duty he heard what sounded like furniture being thrown around upstairs. He said it was so loud, but when he and his co-workers went up to check, nothing was out of place. But there are, however, reports at other times of furniture and other items moving on their own. Many have actually quit their job at the castle simply due to the paranormal activity within its walls. One of the most haunted rooms is said to be the second-floor office drawing room. Many reports of strange things have happened in this room, but one of the most credible reports happened in 1993. While on a tour, the tour group was in this room listening to the tour guide when they all witnessed a quill pen rise up off the desk where it was resting. It rose several feet in the air, twirled around, before being thrown across the room. Did the ghost of Rosa not like the tours going on through the house all the time? Or was it simply the ghost letting them all know it was there with them? Whatever it was, you have a major paranormal event witnessed by multiple people. It would be hard to impossible to deny that something outside our understanding happened that day. It is reported by staff that most that were on that tour fled the room, and many refused to finish the tour. Another strange and frequently witnessed phenomenon by multiple people is the lights going on and off, and even complete power failures that the electric company cannot explain. But the odd thing about the power failures is that they always seem to happen during wedding ceremonies that are held at the castle. A staffer at the castle stated that the power outages don't happen during the receptions or at the parties, it's always during the actual wedding ceremony. Some have wondered if this is Rosa angry because she could never remarry. Maybe she's angered at anyone else trying to tie the knot and find the happiness that she never found. There have been reports from staffers and visitors alike of something that sounds like Native American chanting coming from just in the woods outside the castle grounds. Many have also heard what the staff has dubbed the crying woman, said to be the ghost of a young lady who was killed by a runaway driver as she was standing at the front of the hotel. They say that there are some nights that you can still hear her crying right there at the front of the castle. A recent visitor reported seeing the image of a woman in the dining room mirrors. The visitor stated that she entered the room by herself and was shocked to see a woman standing behind her in the mirror's reflection, but when she turned around, no one was there. She said the woman also looked out of place, the way she was dressed and even the way her face looked. She said she instantly knew that she had seen a spirit, and she thinks it was Rosa. So what is really going on in this beautiful and iconic place? Are there really spirits roaming the halls and the grounds of Berkeley Springs Castle, the way so many witnesses have claimed since the 1920s? Is Rosa, the woman who married a man just for the chance to live in a castle, still walking its halls? Maybe her scorned lovers are there as well. Her husband, who only got to live there for a few months before his mysterious death. Or her two lovers who died under even stranger circumstances. Are they still there with Rosa? Whatever you believe, there is no doubt that very strange and unexplainable things happen at the castle with great frequency. Now, since the 1950s, the castle has been sold many times. I wonder if this is because no one wants to live in the most haunted house in West Virginia. In September of 2000, the castle was sold to the semi-famous paranormal investigators called the Ghost Chasers, who promised to keep up and maintain the castle and continue the tours just as they had always been done. But they also installed cameras, electromagnetic sensory equipment, and many other things to try to get evidence of the paranormal, which of course they claim to have obtained and will proudly show you this evidence when you go and visit. Oh, and by the way, if you're really adventurous, they will even rent you a room for the night at the castle. That's right, if you agree to share that room with Rosa and all the spirits at Berkeley Springs Haunted Castle.